Al Gore is known for many things. He was a congressman from Tennessee, a senator, the Vice President of the United States, and perhaps most famously, the loser in that bitterly contested 2000 presidential election. But he's also a lifelong environmental activist and will soon be out with a sequel to his documentary, An Inconvenient Truth, about the dangers of climate change, called An Inconvenient Sequel, Truth to Power. His environmental work has led to his winning the Nobel Peace Prize in 2007. Vice President Gore joins me now. Welcome back to Meet the Press.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Chuck. Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you. Look, we've learned that you personally spoke to President Trump before he took the oath of office. I think it was on the day he actually fired James Comey. Coincidentally, had nothing to do with this, that you last spoke with him about Paris. What were his responses to your pitches to staying in the Paris Agreement?
Well, he listened, but I have the old-fashioned view that conversations like that should be kept private, but nothing would surprise you about my advocacy, and he did listen. I wish he'd made a different decision. I think this is, by all odds, the most serious challenge humanity's ever faced, and we're going to solve the climate crisis in spite of what President Trump does.
You know, when you put out Inconvenient Truth, I feel as if you took the issue from sort of from just the pure activist community to a broader swath of people. But obviously, you're not there yet. There's a big swath of this country that just does not believe the urgency of this. What do you think you could do to better penetrate that bubble?
Well, first of all, some 70% of the American people believe that we should have stayed in the Paris Agreement, and a majority of Americans in all 50 states, a majority of Republicans, a majority of Trump voters, all believed that we should have stayed in the Paris Agreement. But here's the important thing, Chuck. Despite President Trump's decision, we're seeing governors like Jerry Brown and Andrew Cuomo, Jay Inslee, lots of others, mayors. Michael Bloomberg is doing a terrific job organizing mayors in this country and around the world. We're seeing businesses like Apple and Google and Facebook and General Electric. You can go right down the list. There is now a determination on the part of the American people to meet our commitments under the Paris Agreement, no matter what the White House says. We have seen our emissions go down because these new technologies of solar and wind and batteries and efficiency, they're coming down so fast in cost. In many places, the electricity from solar and wind is half the cost of electricity from burning fossil fuels. So we're going to solve this. It would be easier, and we'd have a boost if we had not isolated the U.S., if the president hadn't isolated the U.S. from the rest of the world. But we're going to solve this regardless of his decision.
You brought up a couple of big name companies. Here's Jeff Immelt, Chairman and CEO of General Electric, disappointed with today's decision on the Paris Agreement. Climate change is real. Industry must now lead and not depend on government. Here's Shell Oil Companies, their Twitter account. Our support for the Paris Agreement is well known. We will continue to do our part providing more and cleaner energy. So you just made a case. Two big industrial industry companies in this country just said they were going to stay in it. Is it possible that the consequences of the president's decision are somewhat mitigated?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to continue to see the reductions in emissions. And significantly around the world, we're seeing virtual unanimity. As you know, it's only Syria and Nicaragua, Donald Trump and Assad in Syria. Nicaragua didn't think it went far enough. China's emissions have now come down 4 years in a row. India's making a massive switch from coal to solar. You know, they just announced that within 13 years, 100% of all the cars in India are going to have to be electric vehicles. This is an amazing shift. We're in the early stages of a sustainability revolution around the world that has the magnitude of the Industrial Revolution and the speed of the digital revolution. It is unstoppable. But the remaining question is whether we will solve this crisis in time to avoid really, really serious consequences. And we could move faster if the U.S. Fulfilled its traditional world leadership role.
But as you know, the politics of this, the president framed it as a choice between jobs and the economy and the environment. I know the arguments that say that look at solar jobs. I've seen there's more solar jobs right now than coal jobs and things like that. So I get the argument that you would make to rebut that. But the fact of the matter is there is a significant chunk of people in this country that believe this is a choice between their pocketbook and the environment. And I guess my question to you is, how do you change that? How do you change that mindset? Because that urgency is what's missing there. That hasn't penetrated that bubble.
Well, there's a difference between arguments and facts. There are now twice as many jobs in the solar industry as in the coal industry. Yeah. And in fact, solar jobs are growing 17 times faster than other jobs in the economy. This is part of the pathway to restoring more economic health in our country. The single fastest growing job for the next 10 years, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is wind turbine technician. And we're seeing efficiency improvements. And this is really sweeping the world. And it is the key to creating more good jobs.
Do you, I still go back though, at some point, you got to get this out of the political arena. Right, you got to have a bipartisan buy-in if you're going to get this government to have bipartisan buy-in. I understand the facts, but there's a sentimentality. Eric Erickson, this morning, conservative activist, he was asked, why don't evangelicals buy into the climate science? And he says, well, many Christians believe scientists are anti-Christian, so why would they believe science? Like, this is some of the issues you're dealing with when trying to convince a large chunk of the country that this is a good idea.
Well, reality should not be a partisan matter. Our country has, for most of our history, made better decisions than any other country because we've been able to have free discourse and agree on what's more likely to be true than not. But there is a new participant in this dialogue that's making a huge difference. And I'm not talking about Pope Francis, although he's made a huge difference. And I'm not talking about the scientific community, which is just about unanimous. The new debater is Mother Nature, and it's hard to argue with Mother Nature. Unfortunately, the climate-related extreme weather events are getting much more powerful, much more destructive, and much more commonplace. Every night on the television news now is almost like a nature hike through the book of Revelation. And even if the media doesn't always connect the dots, people are. Even people who aren't necessarily comfortable using the phrase global warming or climate crisis, they know that this record spate of downpours and floods and the deeper droughts and the rising sea levels. I was in Miami Beach and I saw fish from the ocean swimming in the streets. On a sunny day, it hadn't rained at all. Same thing was happening this past week in streets in Honolulu. Norfolk, the largest naval base in the world, is going to have to move because of the rising sea levels. This is not a political or partisan question. This is reality. And over the course of American history, we have found ways often to put the temptation to partisan politics aside long enough to come together as a nation to do what's right for our kids.
Right. But it's not happening now. I mean,
well, I think it is. I beg your pardon, because we're seeing now the sprawling metropolis of Atlanta just committed to going 100% renewable. I was in the city of Georgetown, Texas, which is one of the most conservative Republican cities in the country. They've already gone 100% renewable. The entire state of California is committing to going to 100% renewable. And we're seeing at the local and grassroots level people coming together to recognize that we've really got to face up to this. We're putting 110 million tons of heat-trapping, man-made global warming pollution into the sky every single day, using it as an open sewer. And what we're seeing here on the ground is this fantastic set of new opportunities opening up to create tens of millions of new jobs, not just in solar and wind, but electric vehicles and retrofitting buildings. This is the wave of the future, and we're beginning to move as a country in spite of President Trump.
What would you tell a coal community in West Virginia?
Well, the loss of jobs in the coal industry started with the mechanization of the coal industry. Natural gas started displacing coal in the fossil fuel sector. And promising to recreate the 19th century is not a visionary strategy for a successful 21st century. I, along with the late Senator Robert Byrd from West Virginia, I was a strong advocate, always have been, of creating new jobs for ones that we shouldn't pretend are going to come back. The coal industry has been collapsing all over the world because the smoke and the dust, not only that, but the global warming pollution has convinced country after country to shift away from it.
But as you know, some of this is not fact-based, it's cultural based.
Yeah, sure. That's
And
this
is the hard part to break through. You as someone in Tennessee should know this, right? That there is some cultural pockets here that, forget the facts. This is about, oh, somebody else is telling me what to do, telling me how to live.
Well, some truths are indeed inconvenient, forgive the phrase, but we can't forget the facts. We have to face reality squarely and do what's right for our people. And pretending that we can turn the clock back and go back to horse and buggy days, or you know, there was a famous saying from Saudi Arabia decades ago, the Stone Age didn't end because of a shortage of stones, and the fossil fuel age won't end because of a shortage of fossil fuels. The Stone Age ended because something better came along, and people found better occupations and better ways to spend their time and better standards of living. And we're going through a transition like that now toward renewable energy and the sustainability revolution.
Have you thought about using climate change as a way back into politics? Your passion for it, saying, you know what, I need to get more urgency in this, and the best way to do it is go be a political activist again and go put my name on a ballot.
Well, I've said this many times, I'm a recovering politician, and the longer I go without a relapse, the less likely one becomes. But I'm not interested in using the climate crisis for some other goal.
Not using it, but yes, but at the same time, sometimes that's the best, some could argue, the best way for you to make an impact.
It's not. Well, I understand your point. Okay, I'm focused. I'm joyful that I've found other ways to serve the public interest, and I feel good having work to do that justifies pouring every ounce of energy I have into it. This is the most serious challenge we've ever faced. We are making headway. But look, Chuck, it can't be fit into political horse race analyses and everything. We've got to come together as a people and put the partisanship aside and rejoin the world community. President Trump made the wrong decision. It was reckless and indefensible. It does undermine our country's standing. But the American people are going to lead if President Trump will not. We're going to solve this crisis.
Always the optimist. If you'll forgive me, I'm going to ask two political questions of you. One, who's changed more, you or Tennessee, politically?
Who's changed more, me or Tennessee? Well, we've both changed. I had a woman come up to me in a restaurant recently and say, you know, if you dyed your hair black, you'd look just like Al Gore.
Well, I don't mean physically, but you know what I mean here. Politically, has Tennessee changed, or have you changed more?
You know, in my farm in Carthage, Tennessee hadn't changed all that much. I guess if you're asking about the political makeup of Tennessee, it's always been in the upper South, a border state. It's always kind of swung from decade to decade back and forth. That part hasn't changed that much. But the world has changed. Our country has changed. But that's always the case. What hasn't changed is that we have deep down the ability and the determination to do what's right for our kids. And when we face the climate crisis, we've got to pull up that reserve of patriotism and a dedication to the future.
You're one of now two people that has won the popular vote but lost the presidency. Advice for Hillary Clinton on when you get over it? Or do you ever get over it?
Well, you know, as I said a moment ago, I feel it's a privilege to have found ways to try and make the world a better place outside of the political system. She's going to do fine, and I talked with her after the election, and I don't think she needs my advice. I think she'll do fine.
But it's something How long did it take you to sort of, do you ever
So far?
Yeah, you ever get over it? I mean, there's been that joke that George McGovern, I guess, said to Walter Mondale, "I'll let you know when I've gotten over it."
Yeah. Well, I learned a lesson earlier in my life. Far worse things. There are far worse things than having the Supreme Court make a decision against you at the end of a presidential campaign. And if we walked down the street out here, we'd walk by lots of people who are carrying unbelievable burdens that they don't talk about. I'm fine, okay, and I've got work to do that's really worthwhile, and I feel privileged to have the opportunity to try to make the world a better place. And we've got a big challenge ahead of us, and we're going to meet it.
All right, Mr. Vice President, it's good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.